With all the big calls on all the big races, it's time for another What a Shout, brought to you by the Racing Post and our sponsors Bet365. Dave Orton back again at the desk with you at the helm for what, let's face it, is a treat of a weekend. If it's all on, my goodness gracious me, you lucky people out there. Absolutely sizzling action. Hard to remember a weekend in recent times as good as this. Fantastic stuff. Of course, you will be able to see it, all the previews. We're going to go through absolutely everything with you. We've got a treat of a panel again for you. Paul Kealy joins me back again. Keels, you've got a little camera this time to set up. Clear as crystal this week.
I've only just learned how to use it. That's the thing.
I can see you've taken a razor to your head, Paul, as well, finally, as well. About time.
Well, I started to look as ridiculous as Boris Johnson, and I just thought, well, look, if you haven't got any ear, there's no point in pretending that you have, is there? Like, you know what I mean? So this is it. This is me.
From one follically challenged individual to another. Pat Cooney from our sponsors, Bet365. There he is.
Yeah, short pack and size and checking in as well.
Happy days. Great to have you live with us again, Pat. Now, listen, from one Pat to another Pat, who better to have with the Dublin Racing Festival in mind? They kick off on Saturday with 3 Grade 1s. It is an absolutely monstrously good card. Pat Mullins joins us all the way from Close Sutton. There he is.
Dave, how are you?
I'm absolutely buzzing, Patrick. It's great to have you on. And let's face it, we're going to see a little bit more of you from recent times. You've joined us fine. I couldn't believe that we've sponsored you for 10 years, Patrick. And now you've joined us as a writer.
I know, your times are tough, obviously, in the racing post.
Well, I don't know about that. I think it's about time. There's not much you can't turn your hand to, is there?
No, I enjoy the writing. I'm doing a bit of there for the last couple of years in kind of the Irish Field and Irish Independent and the Irish Racing Yearbook. So when Tom Kerr asked me what I'd like to do a bit for the Post, I jumped at the opportunity, yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I know that's really been a massive buzz for all our readers as well. So it's great to have Patrick on board. Patrick, let's just talk a little bit about yourself then. It's been another great season so far, this twisted, crazy season that we're having at the minute. It couldn't have gone any better at Leopardstown at Christmas, though, could it, for example?
Yeah, Leopardstown at Christmas was beyond what we were hoping for, because even the last 2 or 3 years, Christmas has been a bit hit and miss for us, particularly, I think, last year. So this year, everything just seemed to hit the bullseye. I think Willie, last year we had the horses probably a little bit too undercooked, and this year we had them a little bit more forward, and you could see that on the racetrack.
Now that seamlessly brings me on to the question from the Bet365 team, and Pat Cooney has something in particular he would like to ask you, Patrick.
Yeah, Patrick, my question to you really is, given that all roads lead to the Cheltenham Festival and all the horses will be 100% at Cheltenham, what percentage will they be this weekend at Leopardstown?
Well, they'll be 100% this weekend. This weekend is very, very important. There's huge money. I mean, the 2 bumpers are worth more than the champion bumper in Cheltenham. The mayor's bumper is worth more than champion bumper in Cheltenham and Aintree nearly put together. So Willie takes this weekend very seriously, and we have these horses wound up to go. This is one of the major festivals of the year. So we're taking it. That's how we're taking it.
That is an interesting question, though, Patrick, isn't it? Because if you go back a couple of years to when Min ran below expectations behind Altior in the Champion Chase, there was a lot of vibes coming out of Close Sutton that he might have left it behind at Dublin.
That year, the ground that year was that really dry year, and we think the likes of Min and Bell's Hill probably got a little bit jarred there. Both jumped. Bell's Hill ended up pulling up after about a mile in the Gold Cup, jumped terrible, and Min. Now, Ruby tried some different tactics on him to try and beat Altior, but he didn't jump like he can either. So I think that was just a one-off in how dry that winter is. That won't be a problem this weekend. We've had huge amounts of rain over here.
Before we go much further, Patrick, obviously, of course, with the amateur-wide sport ban that we have here in Britain, there's a review next Monday, I think, isn't there, February the 15th, for our government on outdoor sports. It looks like it's going to get pushed back to March 8th. If you were betting, I think that would probably be the favourite at the minute. Just exactly what is the chat with the Irish lads? I mean, Patrick, you're the all-time champion amateur. How are you feeling about this at the moment?
I'm taking a positive view on it. I think that it's all happening in good time. I think we have another month of kind of lockdown and vaccinations going up. So I'd like to think by the middle of March, which is 6 weeks away, we might be back to being able to compete in England. And, if you think 6 weeks backwards, it was a very different time. So 6 weeks is a long time. I'm not getting too wound up in it at the moment. Not a whole pile I can do about it. But I'd like to think that with the cases coming down, vaccinations going up, I think Cheltenham might just fall at the right time.
Absolutely. Let's be positive about it. A lot of people out there will want to know if you considered switching your license. Was there anything you could do about that? Become professional, say, example, for the festivals?
Look, there's sort of things you can do. I wouldn't like to do it. I'm too heavy really to be a proper professional. I wake up 11.5 stone. I now have this new job at the Racing Post to consider as well. So, look, we'll take it as it comes. Yeah,
fair enough. Okay, Patrick, before we go into the rest of the show and go into the races and get your idea of, the best horses in them, I want to talk to you about Appreciate It. It's not a race that we're covering, in our previews. His big run, of course, coming up. But we look like we've got another rock-solid chance, don't we, in the Supreme. You've won the Champion Bumper twice, okay? You must have thought, turning in last year on the hot favourite, that you were going to take it out. Now, we know that Fernie Hollow, on the sidelines, we know that he's the real deal. But that feeling going up the home straight, Paddy, you must have thought you were going to take it out again, surely.
Coming down the hill, I was. I kept it very simple on him. We went forward. We got a nice posse and kept out in a nice bit of ground. Coming down the hill, we've got in tight, put the Giggles on horse, kept him in. Jamie's come up on my outside and gone forward. I've even let him on a half length, crossing the road before he turned in. But put it this way: the fact that I had to get down and push him the minute we turned in. I kind of was waiting for something to come and do me. I thought I'd turn in and pick up, and I didn't. I turned in and I just kind of kept going. And the two words I heard on the commentary were Fernie Hollow, and I just thought to myself, I knew what was coming then. So, look, he ran a very good race, and like Fernie Hollow is a very, very good horse, and Paul gave him a fantastic ride on the day. They're two super horses, but I think Appreciate will be fine on 2 miles, strongly run, soft ground. But I think in time he's going to want to trip.
Exactly. I mean, he's a 7-year-old, isn't he? Not so many 7-year-olds take out the Supreme. He's going to go off a hot favourite, all being, as it is. I wonder whether it was quite that hill that made you think, listen, 2 miles, we know we've got it. If he repeats his Leopardstown run at Christmas, he's the one to beat, isn't he?
He is. And look, and he can make the running. If there's no one to go on a gallop, he can bowl away on front, no bother at all. Like, he's not a particularly keen horse. He's got great versatility in that way. You can ride him wherever you like. So that's a huge asset for him. And we've had plenty of horses that have bounced out and made all in the Supreme before. So yeah, fingers crossed he's going to be hard to beat, but we've got beaten in that before with horses we thought would win too.
Well, indeed, absolutely. Listen, we're 5 weeks away pretty much from the opening Tuesday and the opening race to the Cheltenham Festival. Looks like it might well be going the way of Team Mullins, all being well. I know a lot of you wanted to know about Appreciate It. We've got that covered. Let's have a look at what exactly is coming up for you in this bumper edition of a show. Okay, it's the hot topic. What racing cannot afford. My goodness me, the hottest topic in town. We'll be giving that absolute welly for you. We'll be looking at all the big race previews, of course, getting Patrick's insight. Paul Kealy and Pat Cooney will be giving us the lowdown on what's hot and what's not. Market-wise, we'll be giving you the big calls and as well, all important, the weekend naps. So if you want to sign up to our sponsors, Bet365, you can do so with a referral code. When joining, you can type in SHOUT365, the minimum £5 deposit for up to 100 bet credits. Terms and conditions apply. Right then, hot topic time. Hottest topic in town, as I mentioned. We've got Patrick Mullins waiting in the wings. But for this, we had to bring in the big gun. We've got the Racing Post editor, Tom Kerr, coming on. Something racing cannot afford. The potential economic minefield that is out there with the hits of proposed affordability checks from the Gambling Commission. Now, look, some of you may have absolutely no idea about this whatsoever, but we have given this a lot of coverage in the Racing Post this week. You'll have seen Tom's article. If not, you can go to that. It does sum it up. Bill Barber, of course, Specialist Racing Writer of the Year. He laid it all out for you as well. We did a great piece with William Haggis as well, and I have to say, that was the one I related to most. But just to give us an introduction on this, Tom, tell us exactly what's going on at the moment.
Yeah, hi, Dave. So basically, the Gambling Commission is the regulator of betting in Britain, and they're currently consulting on a proposal they have to introduce what they call affordability checks. Now, the proposal basically outlines that every punter would be subject to a loss level. And the number suggested for this is £100 a month. And if you hit this level of loss, that you would have to then provide evidence to your bookmaker that you can afford to continue gambling. Now, it's really important to note, first of all, that the reason why the Gambling Commission are proposing this is fundamentally well-meaning. So it's to tackle problem gambling. And of course, we talk a lot on this show and in the Racing Post about the importance of responsible gambling and safe gambling. And for the vast majority of punters, that's what betting is. It's a pastime, it's a hobby, it's a way to enjoy sport, it's a way to study sport, and it's a way to, put a bit of money on your opinion. And it's good fun, and it heightens the enjoyment of sport. And for most people, that's all it ever is. It's a hobby, it's a pastime, and it's perfectly responsible and harmless. But for a small minority, we all know that gambling can become something much more serious, and it's really important that they know where support is, that the betting industry is there to support them, and that we do everything we can to make sure that betting remains fun and safe. Now, that said, this is not a good proposal, and as a consequence, you've heard a lot about it in the media recently, and there are millions of punters who are going to be affected by this and going to be swept up in this. And as a consequence, it's causing a lot of consternation in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. Okay. So what are the potential problems that people will have with it? I mean, this is almost like prohibition, Tom, isn't it? It's a little bit like civil liberties here, isn't it?
Well, that's kind of it. So there's two key reasons why people are up in arms about this. And the first is really fundamental. Why should the government have a say on what I can spend my money on? Now, we're not talking here about credit. We're not talking about buying a house or taking out a loan. We're talking about spending money that you've earned that's in your bank, and the government saying, no, you've hit a level, you can't afford to spend any more. Now, most people would think that is sort of the nanny state gone mad, because it should be up to the individual to determine what you spend money on. And the second reason why people are concerned about it is a follow-on from that. Betting is being singled out. There's not a proposal to put these checks on anything else. So you're not going to go into the pub for your 20th pint of the month, and at London prices that would be £100, and have the bartender say, show me your P60 or I can't serve you another pint. You're not going to get it if you go to a stockbroker and try to buy some shares. You're not going to get it if you spend £500 a month on designer clothes. So it's just betting this is being applied to. And I think for a lot of people who are keen punters and keen bettors, this will be all too familiar, that there is this sort of snobbery that attaches to some of the conversation around betting, which basically implies that you and I, because we like a bet, we can't be trusted to make financial decisions that everyone else in society makes every day, and fundamentally take personal responsibility for their own actions.
Yeah, the gambling terms, it is a loose one, of course. A lot of, as William Haggis said in his piece this week, most people that bet on horse racing, it's a skilled trade, isn't it? They like to term themselves punters, for one example. I saw one survey, Tom, where they have been done out there, where someone said 50% of our punters probably wouldn't do these checks. I make that a lot higher. I think that's very conservative. What are the consequences if this does pass?
Yeah, well, we've had hundreds and hundreds of emails about this over the last week or two. And if they're any guide, I would think it'll be a lot higher than 50%, because about 95% of the people who have emailed us have said, absolutely no way am I providing my bookmaker with my pay slips, my bank statements. That's a level of financial information that is your most sensitive documents. And simply, most punters are just going to say, no, I'm not going to do that, because that's an invasion of my privacy. It's an invasion of my basic civil liberties. So I would anticipate we would see a lot of punters simply saying, I'm not going to bet anymore. That's it. I'm done. You'd also see some, I think, turning to offshore bookmakers and black market bookmakers who won't ask for these checks. And indeed, these operators, because they're based overseas and because they're completely unregulated, they don't care at all how much people bet. There's no checks and balances whatsoever. So if you're betting through a UK bookmaker. They're regulated and they have a responsibility to you as a customer. These overseas bookmakers, they don't care. So it might actually have, in that respect, a negative impact on some problem gamblers who would then be gambling in completely unlicensed bookmakers. But the knock-on impact to racing, it would be simply enormous. So there's been various estimates for how much this would cost the sport of racing in terms of lost levy and lost media rights and lost sponsorship. And they range from as little as £60 million a year to as high as hundreds of £1 million a year. And that latter figure was given to me by former BHA chief executive Nick Rust. Now, if you take out even £100 million a year from British racing, prize money falls through the floor. Jockeys, trainers, and stable staff are out of work, and you potentially have thousands of racehorses who are no longer economically viable, with all that implies for a welfare issues with those horses. You know, it is quite honestly an existential concern for racing. And I think the really alarming thing, having read through this Gambling Commission consultation paper and having spent over a decade reporting on the Gambling Commission, is these guys don't understand betting. They don't understand the betting industry. They don't understand racing. And I'm really concerned that they're on the verge of doing something for essentially well-meaning reasons, but with no clue of the catastrophic impact it's going to have on people's civil liberties, on the racing industry, and just on betting in this country entirely.
And this will scare a lot of people out there, Tom. I've got to be honest with you. This was something I heard about maybe summer of 2020. I sort of forgot about it, and then all of a sudden it's coming up. What can people do about it?
So there's two things you can do, and it's really important that as many punters as possible have their say. So the first is you can reply to the Gambling Commission's consultation, and this closes on Tuesday, so time is tight, don't delay. The link should be on the screen now, and you click that, and it's quite a simple, short survey. It's really important you give your views. The second thing you can do, and this is also really important, is you can write to your MP. And if you Google write to your MP, you'll find several websites which will basically do it for you. You put in your postcode, and it will tell you who your MP is, and it will often even then let you sort of send a letter directly from that website. And it's really important to do this because the Gambling Commission is a regulator. They're not even civil servants. They're a non-governmental organisation. So they're unelected and they're unaccountable. And they're proposing putting a completely unprecedented limit on your ability to spend your money where you would like to spend it. And I think it's really vital that something as huge as this, as seismic as this, is subject to parliamentary scrutiny. It should never be introduced by bureaucrats who we have no ability to elect or unelect. So it's really important you email or write to your MP and say, are you aware of this consultation taking place? Here are my concerns as a bettor and as an individual whose civil liberties are being potentially taken away, and just make sure that your elected representative is aware of what's happening and your concerns about it.
Great to have Tom Kerr then on the show telling us all about that. So listen, if you're worried about this, there is something you can do about it. Having taken part of the survey myself, it doesn't take long. This is important, people. Get involved. Right, racing clues. Let's go to that then from the past week. I guess it was all about Shishkin kills, wasn't it, in the Lightning Novice Chase. Now, him and Envoi Allen, they're 3 from 3. First of all, tell us a little bit about what he did in the Lightning, what it means for Cheltenham, and then we'll look at the two great horses together.
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, Shishkin's great. I mean, personally, you know, out of the two, I think the one that is more likely to be the absolute superstar is Shishkin, and I would certainly back him pretty much at any distance from 2 mile to 2.5 mile against Envoi Allen. I'm sure that loads of people would disagree with that. And the sad thing is they'll probably never meet because Shishkin's likely to stay at 2 mile and Envoi Allen's never likely to run at it. We'll have to wait and see on that. Shishkin did what he needed to do. Now, you know, this was going to be part of my big call, but I'll mention it now. A lot of people went mental over the fact that he was like 11, nearly 12 seconds faster than Iblio, who won the previous day. That is meaningless to at least to a certain extent. That is meaningless, and I'll tell you why. Because if you have races on a different day, you're not 100% sure about how far they've gone if they've moved the rails. But even if you are, the ground can be completely different. Now, had Shishkin beaten Iblio by, say, 9 seconds, people would still be saying, wow, because 9 seconds is a hell of a lot. It's way over 100 yards. But Eldorado Allen did beat Iblio by 9 seconds because he was only 8.5 lengths second to Shishkin. And Eldorado Allen, no disrespect, he's not even a hovercraft, let alone an aeroplane. Right? So these times, they don't mean that much. Shishkin's best time performance was at Kempton the time before that, because you had a comparison on the day with the Desert Orchid Chase, and he was very good there. He's an exceptional horse. But let's not get wet ourselves over times of races taken on different days.
Yeah, in jumps racing, it's a little bit tricky to they're not quite as solid as they are in flat racing. Willie had a bit to say about that, Patrick, didn't he, as well? You've seen the two great horses lining up then, Patrick. We looked at Envoi's bumper form. Would you believe it? He got a top Racing Post rating of 137 when he was winning, the Leopardstown bumper that's run this weekend at Dublin, and of course when he went on to win at Cheltenham. It wasn't thought to be the greatest Cheltenham bumper he's won. Yes, he's won 1 ever since, but 70 horses, a massive 70 horses since 2000, had also run to at least 137. He's actually way down the list on some of them. However, what he's done, as a novice hurdler, shows him to be a special horse, and very few horses on their second and third starts reach that magic rating of 165. In fact, most of these ratings come at the big festivals. The fact he's not doing it so far at the festivals means that he's going to break the 170 barrier soon, isn't he?
I'd have no doubt he will. I think I remember seeing him win at the Dublin Racing Festival, his bumper, and I remember thinking, we'll get him. Yeah, he's beatable. And then watching I didn't ride in that champion bumper. It's a very small field, and Blue Sari came to beat him, I thought, between the wings at the last, and Envoi Allen just kept doing enough. And I think that's what he does. I think he just does enough. I don't think he's going to get a big rating until he's pushed to get a big rating. He hasn't had a chance to do it over fences yet, because the Drimore and the race in Punchdown, weren't very high quality races, perhaps. And again, down the hill in Cheltenham in the Ballymore, he looked like he was beaten. At the finish, I don't even know if Davies given him a slap. I think he's won kind of hands and heels. I think he's a lazy horse, or a laid-back horse rather than a lazy horse. I think that's probably stopping him from getting a really high rating at the moment.
I'll tell you what, you are going to be a good writer. You corrected yourself there, didn't you? Lazy to laid back. I'll tell you what, he's a natural. Absolutely fantastic. Look, we know we've got two great horses. Pat Cooney, what was your take on it with the big festivals in mind?
Yeah, I think of the two, Shishkin's obviously, it's his Arkle to lose this year, isn't it? But for his sins next year, he's going to have to take on Chasson Poussoir, hopefully, over the 2 miles. But I look at Envoi Allen, and again, he's just got more gears than I think we've seen thus far. And of course, he's going to be versatile trip-wise. I'm sure he could go either down or up, but he could win the Marsh for sure, and he'd probably come back and be a hot favourite for the Ryanair. I just think on balance, if you offered me either, I'd be grateful, but I'd probably say, well, I'll take Envoi Allen, because I just think he's probably even better than he looks so far, and he already looks top class.
Go on, Kills.
The Ryanair. I'm not joking you, right? If Envoi Allen wins the Marsh and comes back and runs in the Ryanair, I will be absolutely devastated. Who gives a monkey's toss about the Ryanair, for God's sake? The Gold Cup or Champion Chase? If he comes back for the Ryanair, it'll be the biggest disappointment since Vautour ran in it.
We could go on about this for absolutely ever. Go on, Pat.
Since Vautour won it. Not random.
That was one of the greatest performances we've ever seen at Cheltenham, Kills. What does it take to please that man?
Mouse race doesn't matter. It doesn't have the prestige. It's Champion Chase or Gold Cup.
I'll tell you what. Tell that to the fans of Min who's backing up to go and win it again. They might have something different to say. Listen, get your say in below. Who's the best? Shishkin, Envoi Allen. We've got to move on. 1:35 then tomorrow. As I mentioned, it's a boom card in the middle of the Grade 1s to kick off. Reminds you, Royal Ascot, this sort of card, doesn't it? Get the Grade 1s in early. Fantastic. It is, of course, the Dublin Chase. And it is, of course, a repeat of last year with Shishkin Poussoir, Biz to see off stablemate Min. Min, of course, going for a third run in the race. Let's go to Patrick about this. You've ridden him once on the racecourse, Patrick. You won on Min. How does he beat Shishkin tomorrow?
Yeah, I got the win on him, obviously, in Punchdown. I was disgusted I couldn't watch it back with the fog, because I got a fantastic spin off him. He's very like Undersow. He's such a professional racehorse. You just kind of have to plug in and hold on. How does he beat Shishkin? Look, he doesn't beat Shishkin unless Shishkin doesn't turn up for whatever reason. We think Shishkin is, over 2 miles now. I think he's probably got a few more gears than Min. and he's probably a bit slicker over his jumps than Min. Min is a very good jumper, but he can be quite high. You often see him giving his fences a bit of height, whereas Shishkin's so slick and low. He's much quicker in the air. So look, I think it was great. I think it's great for the sport that Willie's running the two of them. Like I said, this isn't a trial for Cheltenham. This is a very big meeting and race in its own right. And I think last year was this race one of the fastest times of the season or something. It was a very proper race. And I imagine it'll be the same tomorrow with the likes of Notebook there as well, going a good gallop. And I'm really looking forward to get back and win, but look, it's going to be very hard to beat Shishkin Brassois.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, since he's come to you guys from France, he's never managed to put 3 runs together, has he? Obviously, of course, a lot of racing hasn't been on, but he has got that fragility about him.
He had, look, it took us 3 or 4 years to get him onto the track. But, touch wood, since then, he got a stone bruise in Cheltenham last year, which I don't know what the odds of getting a stone bruise the morning of Champion Chase is, but it's very, very big. And but other than that, we've had no issues with him since, so that wouldn't concern me in the slightest.
Yeah, great reminder. It was just a stone bruise, of course. Let's go to you, Keels. It's not just about Min, of course, and Shishkin Brassois, one of your favourite horses, I know. Of course, Notebook is in there. This is Notebook's track, really, as well, isn't it? But can he topple the first 2, or is this the forecast we should be looking at?
Well, you've got to, when Patrick was talking about the times of the races last year, obviously Notebook won the Irish Arkle, and Min and Shishkin Brassois were miles faster. So he's got an awful lot of stepping up to do there. My worry is last year at Leopardstown in December, Shishkin was a bit sort of on his debut last season. It wasn't Leopardstown. He was a little bit undercooked. He got beat at odds on, and he came out and he was much better. This time he was absolutely 100% at Leopardstown in December. Will he be in February? And I've got some stats for you. They're quite good here. Right. Willie Mullins has had 8 horses beaten in graded races at Leopardstown's Christmas meeting that have come on and won graded races at Leopardstown this meeting. He's had 1. This is in the last 10 years. He's had 1 that won a graded race and won a graded race at the February meeting. Just 1. Every other one of his graded winners in the last 10 years that won over Christmas at Leopardstown and came to this meeting next time out got beat. Footpad is the only winner.
He's won all 3 runnings of this race, Kill. So what are you saying with that? What
I'm saying is, did Shishkin Brassois leave this race behind because he was so well there or not? Like I said, Footpad is the only horse in the last 10 years that Willie Mullins has won a graded race with at Leopardstown in December and at Leopardstown in February. Every other graded winner from December has got beat. Includes Sharjah, who's running in the Irish Champion as well.
Yeah, okay, so that is interesting. Let's go to Pat Cooney with that then. Are we going to see this horse drift then, Pat?
I think he's 2 on at the moment. I could see Bickmakers maybe being brave, but I've got a question actually for Patrick on this. Shishkin Brassois is 174 in official ratings, Min 169, and of course that's probably a mixture of Min's 2.5 mile form. Over this 2 miles, does Patrick think there's more than £5 between Shishkin and Min?
Interesting point. Yeah, I mean, to me, Min is a better 2.5 miler than a 2 miler nowadays. So yeah, I'd say that's probably a fair assessment.
Fair assessment then. Listen, Shishkin, are you going to be brave and take the odds, or can Min get revenge? Okay then, so at the time of the recording, the 2:20, the rearranged Cotswold Chase is due to be run at Sandown. All being well, it will be on. And we go again. Bristol, Demai, Santini, Native River, Lakeview Lad, Yala Enki. That's the field pretty much, isn't it? Keels, who's going to win?
I don't know, mate. I think it's really tough. If you look at this race now and you think, oh, right, it's Cotswold Chase, yeah. All of these have got great form around there. And then suddenly you think, hang on a minute, they're all going the wrong way round. It's a Sandown. What's going on? Having said that, both Santini and Bristol Demai have won at Sandown. Bristol Demai did so in Grade 1 company. I mean, I think he's a real deep ground horse out of the 2. And the vibes were obviously bad last week for Santini. He ends in talking about not running if the ground's too heavy. Well, I mean, if they run this race, the ground will be as heavy as it's ever been on Sandown's chase course. They're not even having hurdle races. I think Native River can run well. St Calvados, you just don't know. You've got stamina and you've got Harry Whittington's form. He hasn't had a winner for 85 runners or so. Sorry, 50 odd runners. So Bristol to my just for me from Native River.
I agree. I agree. Now it's switched to Sandown. I think that swings the balance in his favour. Santini did win there, of course, his appearance last year, but was pretty workmanlike in doing so, wasn't he? And he's 2 from 7, Bristol de Mai, on a right-handed track, but he's 3-2-1 at Sandown, as Keels mentioned. Bristol de Mai for me, Pat.
Yeah, it's fascinating now that we come left-handed, right-handed. But most people are surprised when I tell them it makes a huge difference. But I certainly it reshapes my thinking on this race. I give a nod to Jarla Enki. I think survived the bad blunder to win last time. Not often Paul Nicholls brings them out over after a 2-week gap between their races over these stayers. Maybe that's a runner with Bryony up, giving it a Froden-esque type ride. I keep looking at Native River now that the Tizzards have hit the form, thinking he's a relatively good price. So trying to find the winner is difficult, but if you handed me a sheet of paper with the odds on them right now, I'd say I'd like Native River at his current price.
Wow, okay, so some of the old timers in the party. Of course, St Calvados, the youngest horse there, of course, Keels. It looks like they must be thinking about Gold Cup for him, surely, if they want to run in this. Or is it that, or don't they want to go for the Ascot Chase, Keels, when it might be that close to Cheltenham, with the Ryanair in mind?
Well, it could be both, but I mean, I think it's definitely a fact-finding mission again, isn't it? Because he was so free in the King George that he didn't give himself a chance of getting home, and he didn't run that badly anyway. He looked like the winner turning for home, didn't he? So you've got to give him another chance, and this we will find out, because he handles the ground no problem, but he's got to really, really stay to be winning that.
He's only run twice on it so far, so we don't really know. But Bristol de Mai, he'll love the slop. 3:15 then, time for the Irish Champion Hurdle. Now, since I've been racing, this has been one of the classic races on any racing calendar. Remember some of the greats coming out and taking this. And it is a fascinating little race once again. Why? Honeysuckle. Will she indeed go and be more impressive than when seeing off Darva's start? Workmanlike performance next year. That persuaded Kenny Alexander and the connections to go to the mares. There's now talk of her going for the champion and taking advantage of that £7 allowance. Of course, Sharjah rocks up as well, Patrick, and Saint-Roy, Abacadabras in there as well, Saldier. It's a tidy little race.
It is. It's a fantastic race. Honeysuckle, a bit like Envoi Allen, I think she only just does enough. I think she seems to idle a bit. She can be a bit lackadaisical at her jumps, particularly at the last in this race the previous year. But she just keeps doing enough. She keeps pulling out. You'd imagine Fatima Schwarr is going to go forward. You'd imagine Honeysuckle is going to be handy and wide, usually is her way of doing it. The one I just will be keeping an eye on is Abacadabras. Gordon's horses were running particularly poorly at Christmas, and I think you could see a lot of his horses that ran averagely at Christmas run much better this weekend. So I'll be keeping an eye on him. We'd expect Saldier to come forward a lot. He ran a bit keen the last day, probably a bit too fresh. And Saint-Roy was disappointing. No real obvious reason for it. But maybe he just wasn't on top form of the day. But, you wouldn't be surprised if any of these horses won. Obviously, I'll be playing my cards late on Sharjah. I'll have a big bullseye on the back of Rachel's colours. And I told her she'll hear me counting to 5 before I come past her.
It was a really good win at the Christmas meeting. He's your horse, Patrick, as well, second in last year's champion. Listen, I think he's the one to beat. I've got to say that. Let's go to Kills and get his take on the race.
Well, I love Sharjah, as you know, I always have done. My worry is that he's twice gone to Leopardstown in December, twice come here and run poorly. And I don't know why. Maybe he'll be fine this time. It would just put me off. Ground is expected to be a bit soft, although they've had a couple of dry days. So I know he's better on soft ground now than he used to be, but I don't think it particularly suits him so well. I think Honeysuckle will probably win, but I'm not overboard over her at all. I mean, it's one of those things. She's got this unbeaten record. Everyone thinks she's a superstar, but she's rated 159. If it was a gelding rated 159, you'd just say, well, yeah, good grade 2 horse, wouldn't you? You know what I mean? The 2 grade 1s she's won, last 2 grade 1s she's won against the geldings. Take the £7 allowance off. She's finished 6.5 length fourth to Darva Star, Petit Mouchoir and Super Sunday, and a 6.5 length fourth to Ronald Pump, Beacon Edge and Bacardi's. Like, you know what I mean? We're not talking well beaten form by any stretch of the imagination. So while I think she'll probably win, I think she's beatable. But everything else has got to step up. And what it's done recently, apart from Sharjah, who I'm worried about just because he's run poorly at this meeting twice.
Let's just get a quick word from Patrick about that. He hardly jumped at all last year, Patrick, did he?
But last year we changed tactics a little bit. I jumped off on Rachel's tail and passing the winning post with a lap to go. I've had to give him a squeeze in order to stay on Rachel's tail and not let Darva Star come in to that position. And I've actually ended up jumping upside Rachel at the second hurdle and taking him back. And then he's missed the first one on the back. And I'm just wondering, it was a more forced way of riding him than usual. And did he just not enjoy it? Is that why he missed the jump? Is that why he ran poorly? He might just had an off day anyway. But I think after that, we just decided we'll just continue to ride him cold. So that's what we'll do this year. We'll change tactics. We'll give Honeysuckle that couple of lengths and at the start, early part of the race, and try and make it up at the end. That's what I think. I think last year we jumped off on her tail to just track her, and perhaps it didn't suit him.
Fantastic insight here on What a Shout then for Patrick Mullins. Pat Cooney, who wins the Irish Champion Hurdle?
Well, I often think with Honeysuckle, her winning run, I think it's a bit of an optical illusion, really, isn't it? I think you can't really point to the form book and say, she's an absolute superstar, wonderful mare and so forth. But it's the £7 and mare's allowance that is absolutely gold dust, isn't it? But I think around about 6-4, again, you'd be a bookmaker taking her on. Obviously, I like Sharjah. I just think you look at Abracadabra and St. Roy, if they brought their A game to the table, they should be a lot shorter in prices. So rather than back Honeysuckle or Sharjah, I'd rather split stakes than go for Abracadabra and St. Roy and hope the best of them turn up. And who knows, it's a grade one, they may well do.
3:15 Saturday, the Irish Champion Hurdle, unmissable. Right then, time for the big calls this week. I want to lead, if you don't mind, lads. A sad passing of Sam Vesti this week. Lord Vesti, not long after Lady Celia Vesti went as well. The chairman of Cheltenham, of course, for 21 years. When I first got into racing, I was lucky enough to be very close to Sam Vesti. He would come into the box before every meeting, and it didn't matter who you were, he would shake your hand, he would make you feel part of the meeting. He, of course, was integral in making the festival what it was. I'm sure everyone's got a word about him out there. Patrick, you must have come across him a couple of times. To say he was the everyman Lord was absolutely incredible. He was Lord in every sense.
He was a great man, and his legacy will live on for a long time. I was talking to Henrietta Knight, who was his sister-in-law the other day, and she was obviously very sad, but very proud of him as well. So I think, as I said, I think his legacy will live on for a long time, and I think that's a great thing to be able to say about a man.
Yeah, he was amazing. Honestly, it didn't matter who you were. If you bumped into Lord Vesti at a Cheltenham meeting, the next time you went into the track forever, you'd feel like you owned it. He was vehemently opposed, Kills, to going to 4 days, but he oversaw it. A 5th day's in the offing now, isn't it? And he made Cheltenham what it was. Alistair Down did a great piece in the Post as well.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I mean, you can always rely on Alistair. I think they were very close. He was obviously very important to Cheltenham. It'd be interesting to see where we go with as regards the 5th day, because we might, one of the big stumbling blocks, so it might have been removed, I suppose. But let's hope not. I mean, it's like Patrick said, his legacy is going to be there for a long, long while. Yeah,
a sad week then, the passing of Lord Vesti, then definitely an end of an era. We'll be doing our best to recreate that, but it's going to be hard. Kills, what's your big call this week?
Yeah, it's funny. I was going to talk about comparing times on different days, but then I mentioned that already. And then I thought Patrick said a couple of things about horses only just doing enough when we're talking about Honeysuckle and Envoi Allen. He may well be right on both counts, but when people say that, I reckon only just enough, 9 times out of 10, is far more likely to be. All we've got left, i.e. there ain't much left. It's as simple as that. Everyone says it all the time. I mean, I go on about it, but I was told so many times, got so much grief about what I was saying about Don Poley a few years ago. It is a simple case of people think horses are better than they are generally, and the ceiling of a horse's ability is lower 99 times out of 100 than people think it is. And when people say only just does enough, 9 times out of 10, it's all I've got left.
Oh, I'll tell you what, booing I can hear from the rafters there, pouring scorn on these great horses we've got. Paul Kealy. OK, Pat Cooney, what have you got for us?
Yeah, I'm going to keep to a racing theme, and I think it was just heartening to see the Colin Tizard stable finally have a winner at Wincanton. It's been a murky old time for them recently, and of course they were at the Cheltenham Festival a year ago, and the wheels seemed to come off. But they're too good to be too quiet for too long. They're back in business. And from a pricing point of view, when we have been pricing up runners, you look at the Colin Tizard horse and you think, oh, we can go a bit bigger, they're out of form. That's not the case anymore. They've had a winner. We know how these things work out. It could be a quick run of form. We're going to be pretty keen to keep them on side, I think. As I say, they're too good a stable to be too quiet, this lot. So welcome back in the winner's enclosure, and I'm sure there'll be more to come.
All right, let's go to Patrick Mullins, a big call for us. And we'd like a horse, Patrick, not running this weekend, something we don't know about. You must be looking forward to one in the yard.
Yeah, we've a very nice horse. I was actually meant to ride him this Tuesday, and racing was called off in Limerick. He's a horse called Glen Gooley. He's by Coastal Path, who we've had a lot of luck with, the likes of Bacardi's, Frank with the Port. He won a point for Pat Doyle in the autumn. We bought him for the O'Learys for the Pearl, Blackbow, Mount Leinster. And I ride him out every day at home. He's a sharp little bugger. He keeps me on my toes. He dropped me there a couple of weeks ago, but I like how he does it. I'm really looking forward to riding him. I think the meeting is put back to the 19th of February. He qualifies. It's one of those auction bumpers, and because he was bought privately, he qualifies off his store price. So I think I'd be very disappointed if he couldn't win that race, and he could just be one for the champion bumper.
Oh, happy days in the Florida Pearl colours. Great stuff. There are your big calls. 3:45. Let's go across the Scottish border. Really good meeting at Musselburgh. Great card, Pat, isn't it, on Saturday? Of course, Cheltenham Trials Festival, they're calling it. But at 3:45, the Edinburgh National 0 to 150 proper race.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, this race is 4 miles, 1 furlong. And there's very few races over 4 miles in the calendar these days. And this is one of them. And I think they passed the winning loan 3 times. So as people say, oh, it's a flat track, it's not that demanding. I wouldn't want to walk 4 miles after breakfast. But lively betting race. The Briel for Ben Paulin, he's got that eye-catching run at Warwick last time. He merits his place at joint head of the market. The horse for money, though, has been the Ferry Master, Sandy Thompson, again, a local trainer. And this race is a big deal for Scottish trainers up there. And Sandy Thompson won this a couple of years ago with Full Jack. And I remember giving him the trophy. And he was overjoyed at winning the race. So it's a big deal. I think the Scottish trainers, I think you just mark him up in this race in particular. The Ferry Master, he looks an improving type over the 3 miles. I think he's a strong runner over the 3. I don't think 4 miles would be an issue for him. And he's going to be very popular. He's probably heads our liabilities at the moment. But you can consider other horses in the race. I mean, you've got like Bob Marler, who won the race last year. He's pulled up all 3 runs this year, but he did win the race. I think it was about 9-2 favourite last year. So it's a deep old race. If you go with the improving type and you go with the money and the Scottish desire to win the race, you keep coming back to the Ferry Master, an improving horse. And Sandy Thompson, of course, having a great season.
I think you're going to echo those sentiments, Kills, aren't you?
Yeah, I think this is fairly straightforward, to be honest. I mean, you know, you've got some fairly exposed horses in the race. I mean, Le Boy does bring some solid form to the table for sure, but he didn't win very often. Ferry Master, on the other hand, has won 3 of his last 4. He's won his last 2 pretty comfortably. And, you know, Sandy Thompson is no mug. He's taken out the rehearsal chase this season, taken out the big veterans handicap at Sandown, and he's entered the Ferry Master in both the Festival Novice Chase, the old RSA, and the National Hunt Chase. The Ferry Master is here running off a mark of 134. Even in the National Hunt Chase at Cheltenham, horses rated 134, 136 with 66 and 100 to 1 chances. So he's got to be a lot better than that just to justify an entry. And given the way he's been winning and the way he's been jumping, I pretty much expect him to win.
Yeah, happy days, confidence from Kills. And Le Broy, when you see him as a fav, you know, it was a real eye-catching run, wasn't it, in the Classic Chase at Warwick? But is he just one of them? I can't back myself to be with him. Great to see him turning up, though. The Ferry Master. What I love about this team, Kills, is Sandy Thompson, Ryan Maney. You know they're going to be up there, don't you? Which is so important in these staying handicaps.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, and like I said, the way he jumped. I mean, just go and watch the replay of last time at Doncaster. At Newcastle. And, you know, he just jumped like a stag. It was brilliant. And he has to be a long way ahead of his mark. If he stays, he's going to take an awful lot of pegging back.
I'm delighted to say it's a clean sweep from the panel. The Ferry Master to make some waves. It's not just about Saturday, of course. What a Sunday we have in store for you. And at 3:10, it is the Grade 1 Flow Gas Novice Chase. Looks like they all go. Monkfish, latest exhibition, ding, ding, round 2. Patrick, you're on Asterion Falange. He's on a serious comeback trail, isn't he? I read Willie in the week in the paper saying, you know, you don't ask the question. We've got to see if he goes left-handed again. How are you feeling about the ride, first and foremost?
I'm delighted to be on him. I've schooled him this morning, and he was good. And I schooled him yesterday morning, and he was good. And I'll probably give him another pop tomorrow morning. Look, he won a Grade 1 here last year with Danny, and so you know whatever happened in Cheltenham was way worse than any other day, you know. So he does go a little bit to his right, but he managed to win a grade 1 here last year going left-handed. So I'm not too concerned about that. I imagine we'll be able to just float away out the back, get him jumping, take our time. You won't have to kind of get involved in the nitty-gritty part of it early on, and maybe ride a race after we get over the second last. You know, he won a 2-mile grade 1 here last year, so I'd be thinking that I might be on the quickest horse in the race. And over 2-mile 5, perhaps that might give me an edge over the likes of Monkfish and Ladies Exhibition, but it'll be right him to get over the second last and then have a crack at winning the race.
No, we know he's talented enough to say it. Go on, Kills.
You've got to get him over the first.
Exactly. Oh, just before we came on air, Patrick said, am I riding that, lads? We were like, you are. What about Monkfish down in Trip then, Patrick?
Yeah, I'm not sure it'll worry him too much. Like, he's a strong traveller. You know, he's quite keen on the Albert Bartlett last year. He's not one of those typical, real slow, laid back Albert Bartlett horses. On, you know, around Leopardstown, big galloping track, there's an uphill finish. I don't think it'll affect them.
Yeah, it's great to see the two of them locking horns again. Latest exhibition as well, Kills, isn't it? Paul Nolan and the camp could have ducked him. They're going to roll the dice again. Where do you see this going?
Well, I mean, they're clearly both very, very good horses, aren't they? That's the thing. I mean, you've got that form from the Albert Bartlett with Time Hill involved as well. So we know how well it's worked out. I mean, they're very much the two horses to beat. Again, I have my minor concerns over whether Monkfish will be just as good as he was at Leopardstown the last time. And, you know, I think he'll probably win. I think it may well be tight between the two of them again. You've got to remember, Latest Exhibition did win at this meeting last year. So this could be the one for him. He'll obviously like the ground. I don't think either of them, it's a big deal trip-wise. I just favour Monkfish, but I think it'll be closer. Maybe as close as it was in the Albert Bartlett when there was only a neck between them.
That's a good shout. To me, Latest Exhibition looks the real stout stayer in the pack. And if you watch back that replay at the Christmas meeting, the way Monkfish was jumping 4 and 5 out, oof, unbelievable stuff. I'm not going to oppose him. Pat Cooney.
Yeah, you tend to think of an Albert Bartlett winner never ever going beyond 3 miles for the rest of his career, but it is 2 miles, 5.5. I don't know. Again, he's around about 8 to 11. If it said 3 miles, I'm sure he could have been even shorter. I expect him to win. I think he's the real deal. Can we get him beat? Of course we can. Latest Exhibition is high class. Asterion Forlonge likewise, and he's going to be 14 to 1. But you just keep coming back to Monkfish. I think he's the real deal, and I take him to win. But would I want to be a backer or a layer? I'd probably rather lay him than back him at his current price. But yeah, I think he's the real deal.
It's what we love about the Junts racing game. These stars come to take each other on time and time again. Monkfish, Latest Exhibition. Who wins? Get your comments below. 340 then, perhaps the blue riband. All weekend it is the Irish Gold Cup. 5 runners go to post select field. Pat Cooney, who do you think will go a favourite here? Clear Fav?
Yeah, I'd expect Manello Endo to go a favourite. He was favourite at Christmas, wasn't he, in a similar race? So I'd expect him to go a favourite. But, you know, you can make a case out for, I'll give a nod to the storyteller, but I mean, that is the 16 to 1 outsider. Any of the other 3 can win, can't they? Envoi, who knows, he could get an uncontested lead and bowl along up front. Mellon, I don't know how Patrick will ride. He may be a bit different this time around. And a good Delta work that turns up and shows last year's form is very much a backable price. But on balance, should make Manila Endo favourite. But you know, if you've got any of the other 3 in particular in the raffle, I think you'd be more than happy with it. I think it's a cracking race. Manila Endo, I think, has been favourite ever since the entries came out and will continue to do so. Whether he wins or not is a different kettle of fish.
Couple of horses, Keels, coming with a couple of letters rather than numbers in their form figures. Not ideal, is it?
No, it's not ideal. It's not that unusual, though, is it? I mean, I half agree with Patrick in that. Well, actually, I don't agree with Patrick. So that's nonsense. No, I just think, you know, the one thing I don't think can win is the storyteller. But if I was a bookmaker, I'd generally be 3 to 1 each of 4 the others. I don't think Manila Indo is deserving of short price favourite on what he's done. I mean, you know, the 7.5 left win from Brahma Bull. I mean, what's all that about? Like, you know, being Milan native. I'm sorry, but so what? We're not talking about absolutely outstanding form to be here for the Irish Gold Cup at 7 to 4 against proper Grade 1 winners. I would literally give any of the other three a shout. I'm leaning towards Delta Work because he won it last year. He will be a lot better. It wasn't his fault that he was unseated. But yeah, I mean, my main play, I'll be opposing Minella Window, whatever.
That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. He was the horse that we were hoping and that we're expecting that may rise up. I guess the smaller field will help his jumping, Patrick. We've got to talk about Mellon, obviously, Patrick, and Kenboy. I famously in the studio called it a 1-2 for Willie Mullins going over the final fence. What on earth happened there? You cannot have ridden a better jumper, surely, than you did that day on Mellon.
Yeah, look, he's spectacular to jump. And, you know, there was no... He was jumping so well, I was having to take him back. And there's 6 fences down the back straight in Cheltenham. And I said, I'm not in Leopardstown. I just said, I'm giving away too much ground here. I'm making ground at every jump and I'm giving it away. So I just said, I was going to let him make the ground in the air and sit against him in between. What I'm annoyed at myself was there was no real stride at the second last. And I should have just rolled the dice and asked him to go for it. And instead I made him pop, and it was a bad time of the race to get a little mistake. He definitely stayed, you know, he winged the last and even pricked an ear when he got upsides, Kenboy. Look, we'll probably ride him differently. We'll probably keep holding on to him, follow away. You'll imagine Kenboy will lead. You'll imagine Manila Indo will follow. Storyteller usually drops out last. Delta Work likes to take his time. So we'll probably slot in behind those two and keep holding on to him and try him that way. But I just wonder, like, I know Willie said to me once, you know, if we'd had Dawn Run, would we have tried to settle her? Or if you had Desert Orchid, would you have tried to settle him? You know, should you use your jumping? If you have a horse that jumps, should you let them jump and gallop? Maybe. I hate giving it back when you've made it in the air, but I think we'll probably be a bit more patient this time and see how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. That was going to be my question to you. Can you hold him back when they're jumping like that? It's going to be difficult. But we've just heard how the race is going to be run pretty much. So I don't know. I've got a funny feeling that Mellon might take this out. Kenboy with the ground. He, you know, him and Delta Work are both showing a preference for good ground in there. Would the ground be of some concern for Kenboy?
Yeah, look, we'll have to see what it's like when we get up there. Like I said, there's been monsoon-like rain here for the last 10 days. We've lost a load of meetings, but the chase track in Leopardstown does dry quite quickly. So we'll see on the day. But yeah, he wouldn't want it too slow without doubt. Yeah.
Just the 5 runners, a tricky puzzle, and a real classy one at that. Time to bring our friends then at myracing.com hot off the back of a sensational double last week. If you were on that, happy days. This time they're going down to Sandown for a sizzling renewal of the Scilly Isles Chase, Grade 1 action. And Mazir Dizoba, I've got to say I quite like him as well, the 9-year-old for Alan King. Then they whiz up to Musselburgh in the 3:45, the Edinburgh National. Double up with LeBroy. Weekend winners time. Okay, happy days. Paul Kealy, knock one out of the park for us.
I'm going to go the Ferry Master in the Edinburgh National at Musselburgh, the Bet365 Edinburgh National 3:45.
Cheltenham Trials weekend up there. Fantastic racing. Pat Cooney?
Yeah, Kempton on the all-weather for me. The 5:25, number 3, Suns Up, Guns Up. Won over the course and distance last time for Amanda Perrett. An improved run. Only went up £2 for winning 3/4 of a length. I thought, well, that was very lenient to the handicapper. Yes, it was a bunch finish, but it was improved form. He's fluffed his lines at the start a couple of times, but he got out well enough last time. He'll probably join the race at the cut-off at the furlong and a half pole. I expect a big run from him. And course and distance, you only got £2 for a win. That seems very lenient to me. So Suns Up, Guns Up.
Pat Cooney's second leg of the ACCA then I'll go for 2:45 at Leopardstown. Loads of runners everywhere, but the eye is drawn to the shunter, the Greatwood Hurdle winner. We haven't not seen him since. This is great placing, I think, this from Emmett Mullins. Just £4 higher. Little luck, he'll take that out. Patrick Mullins.
Obviously, we've got a lot of obvious ones there. Would appreciate it, and Shishkin and the likes. I'm going to give an outsider each way. I think Fan the Blues has a big handicap in him someday. I think he's in great form at home. I think he should be followed for the next couple of runs. Fan the Blues will pop up in a big race at a big price one day, definitely.
Lovely stuff. There are your weekend winners. Well, that's all we've got time for here on what was a bumper edition of What a Shout. Fantastic weekend ahead. Fantastic to have Patrick Mullins on the show. Patrick, thanks for joining us. We're going to see more of you.
Thanks so much, Dave. Looking forward to it.
Happy days. Hopefully we'll be seeing you over here in March, mate. Fingers crossed. Paul Kealy, thanks for joining us again, Paul.
Yeah, no problem, mate.
Enjoyed all. And Pat Cooney, great to have you live with us again, Pat.
Yeah, great, and great weekends racing to look forward to, isn't there?
It really is great to have you on board. Keep your feedback incoming on YouTube, Facebook, hashtag What a Shout on Twitter. We love to see it. Don't forget, Safe gambling is what it's all about. So many races to go out this weekend. So important you do that. Don't forget to download the must-have Racing Post app. You can do that on the App Store or the free Google Play Store indeed. So from all of us here on What a Shout, enjoy the sport.